Hello and welcome to the latest Search Laboratory webinar. Today's topic is on future-proofing analytics and setting up success with Google Analytics 4. If you're not familiar with us, we are Search Laboratory. We're part of Havas Media Group, and that is our mantra, searching for the truth in data. We're a performance marketing agency based in Leeds, but also Austin in the US and New York. As I said, we do channels in the performance marketing area, SEO, paid search, programmatic, paid social, and the like. We also specialize in data. So as well as our analytics offering, we offer data project services to enhance the marketing efforts. We're strategic in terms of we offer marketing strategy, and we resell tools to help complement that, such as Google Marketing Platform and analytics being part of that. And we're also we were founded as an international paid search agency, so we retained that through our history, and we can do all of this in different markets globally. Here's a selection of our clients. We do offer services around both B2B, retail, travel, etc. So we have a broad portfolio of clients. Just by way of introduction to myself, I'm Jimmy McCann. I'm the head of digital strategy here at Search Laboratory. I've been here 16 years, and I'm also the lead contact with our Google Marketing Platform partnership. And just to give you an idea of our credibility in the Google Analytics space, we were founded in 2005, and we've been a reseller for 14 years now. So 2009 is when we became a certified partner. We became a reseller in 2017, and we were able to resell the rest of the products, so all the ads products, from 2019. And we're also a Google Cloud partner. So just as a bit of an introduction and executive summary of why we're talking about this today, hopefully if we're going to talk about all the ways that you can use GA4 and gain people's confidence in the platform. But in summary, using GA4 and then the capabilities it has, we're looking at improved measurement, and with an improved measurement, you get a greater understanding of what's working, what's not working, how your paid media is performing, and what's providing the best return. So therefore, the outcome of that is more intelligent spending, and then subsequently, the aim is to, this is all going to impact the bottom line and improve efficiency and get better results. So this is why you should take notice of this webinar today. So regarding GA4, we're going to focus on the difference between analytics. We are coming up to D-Day, so to speak. So, that we just want to make sure that we're getting people's buy-in to the platform and moving over as soon as possible. And then how we can enhance what we're doing by incorporating more first-party data into the analytics platform. We'll go for a few use cases, and then if we have time, we also will just give a bit of a brief overview of the paid version, the 360 versus the standard GA4 properties. So to understand why we all need to switch, I suppose we need to start right back at the beginning, and why have Google rebuilt analytics, and why now? If we cast our minds back 10 to 14 years or so ago, the way we as consumers use the internet has completely changed. Primarily back then we were on a single device, it potentially a laptop or a desktop. Mobile was just coming into the fray, and we weren't as the usage of mobile and optimization of websites for mobile and apps was in its infancy. So primarily, when we were talking about a single desktop scenario, it was much easier to track track that journey across on a single device for a single user. But also the way we used the internet back then was very purposeful, and not intertwined with our everyday interaction. So we're always online all of the day. So the touch points involved and the fragmentation of these digital journeys has completely changed in the last 10 to 14 years. The impact of that, especially with privacy implications and regulation, has fragmented our understanding of a user journey even more so. So when you think back to 2009, for example, the analytics was primarily a website measurement tool. Now Google have rebuilt analytics as a more holistic measurement tool. So this is a bit of an overview of the hit type, the lowest denomination of data collection in analytics has changed. So it's gone to a flat structure. Everything is gone to an event-based scenario. Previously, there were more specifics around what what was probably more skewed towards measuring a website. So the reason why it's gone flat to events is that that's an aggregatable action. You can measure users and interactions across not just a website, but a mobile site, an app. We can even measure interactions that are offline in different systems, such as the CRM. So we could track phone call interactions, etc. But also, if you have POS system, point of sale, if you're a retail business, we might want to incorporate physical store sales into this as well. You can also track games and other things of that nature. So this is a much more holistic, aggregatable way of measuring across different platforms and seeing that more fuller user journey. So I wanted to touch now on why the numbers are different. That is a common question that we find from our clients, and speaking to people in the industry, is I'm not convinced, I'm not ready to move to it because I can't get the numbers to match. They're not going to match because they are completely different systems, and I'm going to talk through why that is, but also why the numbers coming out of GA4 are actually better than what's in Universal Analytics right now at this time. So why are the numbers better? We have grouped it into three distinct areas here. So GA4 better preserves the user. So I've talked about those things earlier, and I'm going to talk about them in a bit more detail in a short while, around the fragmentation of the user journey and not being able to string a person together. The second part why GA4 numbers are better is that it does a better job then of restoring the unknown data. So there is modeling involved and features to restore unconsented data as well. And then once you have better preserved and better restored data, we have a better understanding, a better data set to then perform attribution on. And within the tool, attribution is baked in by default. So again, we can redistribute credit appropriately to the various touch points that a user might have had on their journey that is tracked in analytics. So I'm going to run through each of these three areas in a bit more detail now. So GA4 actually uses 3 pillars of identity. Universal Analytics usually relied on a single default device ID or client ID. You could actually implement user ID in Universal Analytics. However, it was either or with client ID. So you did lose anybody that didn't authenticate. And an authentication, which is what we mean by user ID, is when somebody would declare themselves. So i.e. log into the site, or an app would be logged in by default. So in GA4, we have a combination of device ID, user ID, but also Google Signals. So just to clarify Google Signals and what that is, for those of you that aren't familiar with it, Google Signals is Google's walled garden, so to speak, their data on its users. And what we mean by that is people who are logged into the various Google products. So if you think about your usage of Google products as a consumer, you might use Google Maps, you might use YouTube, you'll be logged into Chrome most of the time, you'll be using search, you'll be using other things. You might have an Android phone. It uses all of that data to understand what its users are doing across different devices in different moments, and understand whether you are the same person. And if you're logged in, Google can tell that you're the same person. So basically, it uses that data and layers that on in the interface. So it won't provide this in the raw data, because that's against privacy, GDPR regulations. However, to give you more representative figures, it provides that modeling on top of the data. So to deduplicate users across all those different touch points that occur on potentially different devices, etc. So as I say, Google GA4 uses a combination of those three methods. And why is this important? So we have a generic example of a user path here that might be tracked in analytics. There's a couple of touch points that we can string together because it's on the same device, on the same browser. So the device ID, the only thing that matters in Universal Analytics, has persisted across a couple of those touch points. However, those other interactions were not able to stitch together. And the end interaction, that conversion, is actually detached from all of it. So we don't understand what that user did until the actual, and we think it's just a direct conversion. In GA4, again, this is just probably overestimating the accuracy of being able to stitch that user together. But we are persisting. We are being able to persist and understand what that user's doing across more touch points, because we have those three layered methods of user identification. So as I say, it facilitates a better representative view. And then once you have better data collection, you can do better things with it, i.e. attribution. Restoration is the second of those groupings that we talked about at the beginning. So what we mean by this are things like consent mode and model conversions. So just to touch on consent mode, if you have a consent management platform, which if you're in, most websites do, where you ask for acceptance to place cookies and track people on when they come to your website. If they decline that consent, if they do not consent to putting a cookie on the browser, then you cannot track them. Google Analytics is not allowed to track them as an individual. So as you can imagine, that we have a depiction of an actual user path, what they actually did in reality. But then without consent, there are interactions, and therefore we can't string those interactions either, that we cannot see. So therefore, not only do we not see some of the interactions, we might not even see the conversion if that person didn't declare consent on that end interaction. So what we have is consent mode, which gets around this issue by it will it won't track an individual. However, it will collect anonymous pings for conversions when they occur and interactions when they happen from those users. And these are completely anonymous. You can't string the interactions together in any way, and they will go to a location, a server in Google somewhere, and then Google has your known data where people have consented, and it understands all the events that occurred and the conversions that occurred from those events. It uses the known data that you've collected to then restore all these unconsented interactions and conversions back to what Google perceives is reality, based on your own data and those interactions that have happened where we can track it. So basically the idea is then, it is consented. You're restoring the unconsented interactions in a privacy safe way, because it's not tracking users, it's tracking things that happened in isolation. So then, as I say, Google will restore all that data then with using the consent mode and modeling. And we can see, how those, a more accurate representative view of what channels or campaigns drove various conversions using that consented data. Thirdly, so we've preserved a lot more data around the user. We've restored the data we can't see and string together. Once we have preserved and restored data, we have a much more robust data set to perform attribution on. An attribution isn't the same as attribution, as you might have seen in attribution in Universal Analytics GA360. So data-driven attribution exists by default in GA4, whether it's free or paid version. It's actually been enhanced as well. It will persist over more interactions. So I think it was limited to 4 interactions before, and now it persists a lot longer over a longer time period as well. They've actually continued to use the data-driven methodology based on the Shapley value. But then they've enhanced this with an extra time decay element. So basically, interactions that happened more recently are valued a little bit more than potentially interactions that happened quite a long time ago. And that more enhanced view of attribution attribution model, sorry about that, we'll be able to distribute credit more effectively across that entire path. So here we've got a representation of, what GA4 might be doing as a distribution of credit across a given individual path. And for Universal Analytics, again, this is not fit for purpose. Universal Analytics is not fit for purpose in 2023. So, this is why we're seeing an awful lot of credit being attributed in Universal Analytics to that final direct or paid brand interaction, or organic traffic to the homepage. That final action is always getting 100% of the credit. So GA4 does a better job of redistributing that credit. And just a little bit more around the attribution models available in GA4. You have DDA available. You can actually change your default attribution model in the reports through the admin section, so you can flip between different models, and you don't have to use DDA, or however we would always recommend that. You may see that there's a number of different dimensions associated with source medium campaign. So you might see just a medium or a session medium or a user medium. These basically relate to these three models, so to speak. So if you're looking at a session source medium or campaign, that means it's the last click. That is that is the model that one is using. If you're looking at the user, so where the user came from first time, it's a first click. If you're looking at just the broad source medium or campaign, that is the model that you've selected in the settings. So as I say, the default is data-driven attribution, but you can change that if you need to. So just to reiterate those 3 points, this is why GA4 numbers are better. It does a better job of preserving the data around a user. Once you've got more data on that user and what they did across that journey, then you can fuel the restoration of the data that you can't see. Once you have all of that data, that base level of data collection in a much better state than Universal Analytics, for example, then you can do attribution on it and see what actually was providing value in terms of acquisition of users. So I'm going to move on now to taking analytics on to the next level. So you might hear an awful lot about first-party data in the industry. It's the future. You know, this is how we are getting around, you know, GDPR, not being able to place third-party cookies on browsers not supporting them anymore. It's all about the data, the rich data that you have already. So this is, I'm not going to run through every item on here, but these are the various types of first-party data that you could potentially ingest into analytics. So, you know, you've got campaign data, so you might want to ingest cost data, for example. You will get cost data from Google products, but, you know, if you're doing advertising on different social channels such as Facebook and Meta, etc., you're not going to get any cost data in from against the users you've driven from those channels. So it'd be useful to have that in one place, and you can easily put that into analytics should you wish. Transaction data. So this is really important in order to be able to optimize to the right values. You know, if you are not seeing all of your transactions occurring through a website or on an app, then you might want to think about incorporating more of that transaction data into analytics so you can get that broader view of what your customers are doing. CRM data, so you might want to ingest, if you have personas or audience data segments that you're using for email purposes, etc., you might want to reflect those segments in analytics against the known users that you have coming to your website. Can understand their behaviors, what they do then, and measure acquisition of certain audience types. Product data, you might want to incorporate stock data, profit margins, etc. So you can optimize towards more valuable metrics in terms of, you know, what's actually impacting the business and the bottom line. Store locations, you might want to be able to segment your reporting by area manager, region, or, you know, something, business units, things that are bespoke to your company. So those are the things that you can ingest, and there's a few ways of ingesting the first party data. So, and then, yeah, this is cookieless. You know, this is, you know, you can get around any limitations that cookies and the deprecation of third-party cookies are impacting us. So User ID is one of the ways of ingesting the first party data. So in short, we can, when somebody authenticates, so i.e. logs in, we can widen the data that we have on that user. So, you know, somewhere in your system or in your other systems, or, you know, you might have purchases to date, lifetime value, intent, life stage. You might have all this important information that be useful to understanding marketing, but that's detached because you can't by default track that in analytics. You can ingest that upon somebody logging in and associate that to that user using the user ID. Data import is another way that we could do this. So again, we could, you know, data import, we could import cost data. That was one example that we talked about just before. We can import profit margin against products. So you can import basically a lookup table, and when we collect data on users or products or acquisition channels, we can also widen that by incorporating other data from other places, and that can be as simple as just uploading a CSV file. It's, you know, you don't have to be a analytics technical expert to be able to do that. It's quite simple. Measurement protocol is a bit more sophisticated, so that will be the automated method at which you would stream data into analytics. So what we're talking about here is, you know, you can stream data from other systems such as a customer relationship management tool or a point of sale tool. So again, we've got different examples that we'll run through shortly in terms of how we can, you know, what we might use that data for. So as I say, once you ingest in that first party data, you know, how do we use this then in marketing? How we would best use it? But basically, you can bucket it into two areas. It can enhance our measurement and therefore the insights that we're taking from all of it. And more importantly, though, we can actually activate it once it's in that analytics ecosystem. So we've got examples there on measurement. You know, we can measure CRM audiences, profit or lifetime value, and then we can activate on audiences or value. So here's a bunch of examples. As I say, you know, we have the first party data of cost data that we can incorporate from Facebook, and then we can enhance our view of what did we spend and what did that provide for the website or app or combination of those two. For CRM audience, we could have an example of a new customer, a loyal customer, a lapsed customer. We could bucket those customers upon authentication when they log in. We can then be able to measure a new versus returning. That's really important because for growth purposes, you know, you don't want to be paying over and over and over again for the same returning customers. So, you know, and you want to be able to understand what activities are driving the new ones. So that just by doing that simple segmentation, you can then be able to segment your reporting and see what's driving the new business. By way of activation, you can actually then create segments of you know, loyal customers, share that with the advertising platforms, the Google advertising platforms, and then be able to do lookalike audiences off that. And as I say, we can optimize toward the new customers and overvalue them as opposed to returning and you know, negate their value for a returner. So we force the auto bidding in platforms like DV360 or SA360 or Google Ads. We force those tools to optimize towards new over a returner. We also have example in terms of a CRM audience of persona or interest, where we can see how we're acquiring people of a certain these certain interests or personas. So as I say, if you you might have distinct audiences that you want to be able to market to differently. You could actually activate and personalize messaging or imagery and creative, or be more aggressive with certain ones rather than others, through personalized marketing, using the Google Audiences feature. So in terms of a business value example related to retail, again, we can push that profit data in. We can measure the business outcomes. What did that user or what did that channel provide on from a business perspective on the bottom line, but we can also use that data to then optimize towards actual profit or long-term profit, for example. Force the smart bidding algorithms to focus on those customers over the ones that might not be as valuable, or that might not be as revenue driving. A B2B example of business value would be sales data. So normally we would have campaigns in B2B optimizing to a form fill. And as we know, not all form fills are equal. Some are bogus, some are good but don't end up in the sale, some end up in sales. So it would be good to understand and be able to tie that metric back up, the actual sales data back up to the bidding, so that we're actually going after things that are driving value and not things that are driving forms, if that makes sense. So I just wanted to touch on a couple of notable features that you may or may not be aware of with Analytics 4. So I'm in the basic Search Laboratory GA4 property here. And if I just pop out the main nav, so this is the main nav. You might look quite similar to your own. However, a major notable feature in GA4 is the actual ability to customize this nav. So you can build custom reports and place them within the navigation based on your specific needs. So the way you have to have admin access to do this. However, you can see that we have collections here. So Google Organic is the collection. You can see that reflected there. And then we have these topic areas, so Search Console and Page Performance, which are here. And then you have specific reports that are sat under here, under each one. And you can build custom versions of each of those. So you can see I can move where they are positioned in the nav, or delete them, and then move other reports over to sit in that custom nav. So just to give you an idea of what you could actually show within the the default navigation, is this isn't something that you would ever been able to do in Universal Analytics, is show within the main nav just focused on the blog performance from organic search. So you can see what pages are performing best in standalone, just up from the blog, and are they actually impacting on any conversions that we are getting. So I can select a single conversion, such as a contact, or such like, and see whether more early to mid funnel content is actually driving any contacts. So that's one notable feature. I also just wanted to touch on another one, which is actually really useful. So we also have the ability to build audiences. So here's an audience I built earlier. So it's a job seeking audience. So we get an awful lot of traffic coming to the website from people wanting a job at Search Laboratory. We can create an audience of those people, and either on an include or an exclude. So for our marketing team, I would imagine that, you know, when we want to see how we're performing for acquiring new customers, we might want to exclude this type of traffic from the scenario. It'd be polluting, you know, the objectives of the marketing team. Whereas for our HR and talent team, this would be really useful to be able to see what activity, what posts and everything is actually driving people seeking jobs. So as I say, we can create a segment here based on some regex of, does the URL of that page view contain careers or jobs? And then we can actually go in and view reports for any of the reports that we have on here for purely job seekers alone. So if I pop into acquisition, for example, traffic acquisition. So I've got a traffic acquisition, and this is using all of our data. We have all users selected. I will just click on there, and this will allow me then to define those job seekers alone. So now, if I just apply that, we can see any report, and we can navigate around analytics, and we can see where our job seekers are coming from. And, you know, we actually have conversions associated to vacancy apply. So then we can select that and see where actually we're getting people that are engaged and interested, but also any applications through various channels. And you can see there that denotes that we're just looking at job seekers. So that was all I wanted to show on the demo. I'll just hop back into the presentation. So to summarize, really, here are the actions that you need to take now, I suppose, given the impending nature of and disappearance of Universal Analytics. So you have to make sure that you've got a robust implementation, and that's going to facilitate future performance. Invest a bit of time now, block some time out and start playing around with the interface and build your customized reports, get familiar with what it's actually showing you, and get buy-in from the wider teams that, you know, this data is actually better and more robust measurement than Universal Analytics. Also integrate, so once you've implemented and invested time, make sure that you're integrating first-party data, because it's going to help you in the long run. You know, those use cases, hopefully, that I showed earlier can really show how you can take your marketing to the next level by using that first-party data. So that brings us to a close today. I think we still have time for one or two questions. So I'll open the floor for a couple of questions. We've got a question from John. How will we retain any historic data from Universal Analytics? That's a good question. You know, upon sunset, Google have said that they're actually going to delete the properties, so you won't have unlimited access to that data in a Universal Analytics property forever. What we are doing, and what we recommend you do, if you have a need to retain all that historic data, or at least 12 to 2 years of data, 12 months to 24 months of data, is extract it and store it in somewhere like BigQuery. There are services. If you don't have GA360 currently, you won't have access to a BigQuery stream. So there are services such as Funnel, for example, that you could use to download the data in batches and then store it in a cloud platform. So I would recommend it that for that purpose. Are there any other questions? So we got one from Caroline. It's actually very current, actually, where a lot of people have been asking this about when custom channel groupings are going to come out. They actually came out last week, so custom channel groupings are out, and I think a lot of people were that was kind of a deal breaker for them moving to it. So there's no limits now. There's no limitation on being able to create your own custom channels from various campaigns and things that you've got going on. So that's there. I think we've got finally an anonymous one. How much is GA360? I mentioned before that they've changed the pricing model. I think previously, we were talking almost 150,000 pounds or dollars for the product over the course of a year. The monthly price has come right down. At the base level, the monthly cost is around 3,700, and you would get 25 million events a month for that. And then it scales, and you are charged on a per event basis on a monthly basis. So as you can see, the entry level cost is actually much more attainable for a lot of companies. I think that might be it in terms of questions. So yeah, that brings us to a close. I hope you've taken a lot from this, and if you have any analytics needs, we'd be happy to help out. Thank you very much.